Stewardess called security on a black teen at the airport. Then the airline CEO showed up and hugged his daughter. The sudden silence that falls over gate C-17 is deafening as the stewardess's voice cuts through the ambient airport noise. Security! I need security at gate C-17 immediately. Her finger points directly at 17-year-old Marcus Johnson, whose stunned expression freezes on his face as every head in the crowded boarding area swivels toward him. In his hand, a boarding pass for first class. Around his neck, expensive noise-canceling headphones. On his face, the unmistakable look of a young man who has just realized that sometimes, no matter how you dress, how you speak, or how you carry yourself, the color of your skin can still make you a target. But I'm supposed to be in seat 2A, Marcus says, his voice cracking slightly as he holds up his boarding pass. My father purchased this ticket. I have every right to. Sir, I'm going to need you to step back. The stewardess, her name tag reads Diane, interrupts, her voice tinged with an authority that seems to grow with every word. We've had reports of someone attempting to use fraudulent boarding passes for upgrades, and your profile matches what we're looking for. The whispers start immediately. Elderly couples exchange glances. A businessman in his 60s shakes his head slightly, though it's unclear whether in sympathy for Marcus or agreement with Diane. A woman in her 50s clutches her purse a little tighter. But then, something unexpected happens. From behind the gathering crowd, a man in a perfectly tailored suit strides forward. His silver hair catches the fluorescent airport lighting, and his presence commands attention immediately. Even Diane's confident expression falters as she recognizes him. William Thompson, CEO of Atlantic Airways, he announces, not to the crowd but directly to Marcus. And then, to everyone's astonishment, he extends his hand to the young man. Your father spoke very highly of you when we had lunch last month. He mentioned you'd be flying with us today. His eyes shift to Diane, whose face has drained of color. And I believe this young man is exactly where he's supposed to be. The tension in the air is thick enough to slice with a knife, as Thompson places a gentle hand on Marcus's shoulder. But to understand how we got here, to this moment of public humiliation and unexpected intervention, we need to go back. Back to a morning that started like any other in the Johnson household, where a simple family trip would set in motion a chain of events that would change multiple lives forever. The Johnson family home vibrates with the familiar sounds of morning chaos. Marcus fumbles with his suitcase zipper in the upstairs bedroom, frantically trying to make space for one last pair of sneakers. At 17, he still hasn't mastered the art of packing light, especially for a weekend trip to see his grandmother in Chicago. The aroma of his mother's famous blueberry pancakes wafts up the stairs, mingling with the faint sound of NPR's morning edition playing from the kitchen radio, a tradition in their household since before Marcus was born. Marcus. 20 minutes before we need to leave. His mother's voice carries through the two-story colonial with the precision of someone who has spent her entire professional life keeping schedules. Dr. Eliza Johnson, chief of cardiothoracic surgery at Memorial Hospital, runs her household with the same efficiency she brings to the operating room. Coming, Mom, Marcus calls back, finally giving up on the sneakers and opting instead for just the essentials. He catches a glimpse of himself in the mirror, tall and lanky like his father, with the same thoughtful brown eyes and strong jawline. His father always tells him he's going to break hearts one day, but right now, all Marcus wants to break is his personal record for the 400-meter dash. Track scholarships don't come easily, even for students with perfect GPAs. Downstairs, 6-year-old Sophia sits at the kitchen counter, her legs swinging freely as she carefully arranges blueberries into a smiley face on her pancakes. Unlike her brother, she's been packed and ready since last night, her pink rolling suitcase parked by the front door like a sentinel. Is Daddy coming with us to the airport? Sophia asks, looking up as Marcus enters the kitchen. Dr. Eliza Johnson glances at the clock on the wall, a vintage piece from the 1980s that she and her husband Michael found at an antique shop during their honeymoon. He's meeting us there, sweetheart. He had that early meeting with the new clients, remember? Michael Johnson, a business consultant for a firm that specializes in helping minority-owned businesses secure funding, had mentioned the meeting last night over dinner. Something about a promising startup that needed guidance navigating venture capital waters. He promised he wouldn't miss saying goodbye, Marcus says, ruffling his sister's hair as he grabs a plate. Dad never breaks his promises. Like when he promised to take us to see the new Star Wars movie on opening night, and then his flight got delayed, and he still made it just in time, Sophia recalls, her eyes brightening at the memory. Exactly like that, Eliza smiles, but Marcus catches the slight worry in her eyes. Their father's dedication to his family is unquestionable, but so is his dedication to his clients. It's a balancing act that sometimes leaves everyone a little on edge. The morning progresses with the comfortable rhythm of a family that knows each other's habits by heart. Eliza checks her phone for hospital updates while simultaneously quizzing Sophia on her spelling words. Marcus reviews his training schedule. He won't miss a day, even at Grandma's, while simultaneously texting his best friend Devin about their science project. By the time they pile into Eliza's sensible hybrid SUV, they're only 7 minutes behind schedule, a victory by Johnson family standards. "Mom, why aren't you coming with us this time?" Sophia asks as they pull out of the driveway, their home growing smaller in the rearview mirror. Eliza sighs, her hands gripping the steering wheel a little tighter. "Remember we talked about this, honey? I have that big surgery on Monday. Mrs. Patterson needs a new heart valve, and I've been preparing for weeks." "You save lives, Mommy," Sophia says with pride that makes Eliza's eyes mist slightly. "That's more important than going to Grandma's." "Nothing's more important than family," Eliza corrects gently. "But sometimes we have responsibilities to others too. That's why I'm so grateful that Marcus is old enough to help look after you on the flight." Marcus feels a swell of pride at his mother's words. At 17, these moments of recognized maturity still feel significant. "First time flying without either of you," he says, trying to sound casual. "But it's cool, I've got this." Eliza catches his eye in the rearview mirror. "You absolutely do. You've been flying since you were Sophia's age, and it's only a 2-hour flight. Your father would come with you if he could, but with that big presentation on Monday." "Mom, seriously, it's fine," Marcus interrupts with a good-natured eye roll. "Sophia and I will be fine. Grandma will meet us at the gate in Chicago. What could possibly go wrong?" The question hangs in the air, innocent yet somehow foreboding. Atlantic Airways terminal bustles with the particular energy unique to Friday mornings. Business travelers returning home for the weekend, families embarking on short getaways, and the steady stream of airline staff navigating the controlled chaos with practiced efficiency. Michael Johnson stands near the check-in counters, checking his watch for the third time in 5 minutes. His meeting had run longer than expected, and now he might miss saying goodbye to his children. The thought makes his stomach tighten. Ever since his own father had missed too many moments in his childhood due to work, Michael had promised himself he wouldn't repeat that pattern. He spots them before they see him. Eliza shepherding the children through the automatic doors, Sophia clutching her mother's hand while Marcus pushes the cart with their luggage. The sight of them sends a familiar wave of love through him, momentarily displacing his stress about the upcoming presentation. "Daddy." Sophia breaks free from her mother and races toward him, her pink backpack bouncing against her small frame. Michael scoops her up, spinning her around once before setting her back down. "There's my princess, all ready for your adventure with Big Brother." "I packed Molly," she informs him solemnly, referring to the well-loved doll that has accompanied her on every trip since she was 3. "And my rainbow socks, and the book about the girl who builds robots." "Sounds like you're all set then," Michael grins, looking up as Eliza and Marcus approach. He kisses his wife quickly before clapping a hand on his son's shoulder. "And what about you, champ? Ready for your first solo mission as Sophia's official guardian?" Marcus straightens slightly at the responsibility in his father's words. "Got my ID, got the boarding passes on my phone, got Sophia's favorite snacks for when she inevitably gets hungry 15 minutes into the flight." "That's my boy," Michael says proudly. "Always prepared." Eliza checks her watch, a sleek, professional piece that couldn't be more different from the vintage clock in their kitchen. "We should get them checked in. Their flight boards in an hour." The family moves through the check-in process with the efficiency of experienced travelers. Michael notices the way the agent looks at Marcus, a quick, almost imperceptible assessment that makes Michael's jaw tighten slightly. He's seen that look before, has experienced it himself countless times. The silent question, "Do you belong here?" But the moment passes and soon they're heading toward security, that dreaded boundary where families must separate. "Now remember," Eliza says, straightening Sophia's collar, "listen to your brother, and Marcus, call us the minute you land." "And Grandma will be waiting right at the gate," Michael adds. "She texted me this morning to confirm." Marcus nods, suddenly looking so grown-up that it makes Michael's chest ache with a mixture of pride and that peculiar parental sadness that comes with watching your children step further into independence. "Oh," Michael suddenly remembers, reaching into his suit jacket. "I almost forgot. I got you both something for the trip." He pulls out 2 envelopes, handing the blue one to Marcus and the pink one to Sophia. Sophia tears into hers immediately, while Marcus opens his with more restraint. "First class," Marcus looks up, surprised. "Dad, you didn't have to. Consider it a reward for that 4 GPA and breaking the school record in the 400 last week," Michael says, unable to keep the pride from his voice. "You've earned some luxury." Sophia is bouncing with excitement. Does that mean we get the fancy cookies? Devon's sister said they give you fancy cookies in first class. The fanciest, Michael confirms with a solemn nod that makes her giggle. Eliza raises an eyebrow at her husband. You spoil them. That's literally my job description as a father, he replies with a wink. The final goodbyes are quick. Eliza has never been one for drawn-out emotional scenes, and Michael follows her lead, even as he feels that familiar tug of worry watching his children walk toward the security checkpoint. They'll be fine, Eliza says, slipping her hand into his as they watch Marcus guiding Sophia through the security line, patiently explaining each step to his wide-eyed sister. I know, Michael replies, squeezing her hand. He's a good kid, the best. What neither of them says, what they've never had to say aloud to each other after 20 years of marriage and raising black children in America, is the other worry that sits like a stone in both their hearts. The worry that no amount of preparation, no level of excellence, no perfect manners or stellar achievements can completely erase. As they turn to leave, Michael's phone buzzes with a text from William Thompson, the CEO of Atlantic Airways and his newest client. The message is simple. Looking forward to reviewing your proposal on Monday. Safe travels to your children today. Michael smiles slightly. Having the CEO of the airline personally aware that his children are flying today brings an extra measure of comfort. Not that they'll need it, of course. What could possibly go wrong on a routine 2-hour flight? The security checkpoint is a familiar gauntlet that Marcus has navigated dozens of times, but doing so while responsible for an energetic 6-year-old adds a new layer of complexity. Sophia is fascinated by everything. The conveyor belts, the uniformed TSA agents, the beeping machines. Why do we have to take off our shoes? She asks, struggling with her sparkly pink sneakers. Remember what Dad explained, Marcus says patiently, kneeling to help her. They need to check everything to make sure the planes stay safe. A gray-haired TSA agent with kind eyes smiles at Sophia. That's exactly right, young lady. Safety first, right? Sophia nods solemnly. My mommy says that too. She's a doctor and she saves people's hearts. Is that so? The agent's smile widens as she helps Sophia place her backpack on the conveyor belt. Well, she sounds like a very important person. She is, Sophia confirms, and my daddy helps people start businesses and Marcus is going to run in the Olympics someday. Marcus feels a flush of embarrassment. Sophia, the lady doesn't need our whole family history. Actually, the agent says, winking at Marcus, it's the best conversation I've had all morning. You two enjoy your flight now. The interaction leaves Marcus with a warm feeling as they gather their belongings on the other side of the checkpoint. This is how it should be, he thinks. Simple, friendly, human. He checks the time on his phone, 45 minutes until boarding, just enough time to get Sophia a snack and reach their gate. Can we get hot chocolate? Sophia asks, already pointing toward a cafe with the unerring radar children seem to possess for treats. One small hot chocolate, Marcus agrees. But you have to promise to drink it all before we board. No liquids on the plane unless we buy them after security, remember? The cafe is crowded with morning travelers, but they find a small table near the window overlooking the tarmac. Sophia presses her nose against the glass, watching the choreography of ground crew, luggage carts, and taxiing aircraft with fascination. That's going to be our plane, Marcus tells her, pointing to an Atlantic Airways jet being serviced at a nearby gate. The big blue one with the silver wings. It's enormous, Sophia whispers with appropriate awe. How does it stay up in the sky? Marcus launches into a simplified explanation of lift and aerodynamics that he'd learned in physics class last semester, and Sophia listens with the intense concentration she reserves for subjects that truly interest her. It's one of the things he loves most about his little sister. Her curiosity is boundless. You're really smart, Marcus, she says when he finishes, making him feel 10 feet tall. As smart as Daddy. Not quite, he laughs, checking the time again. Drink up, kiddo, we should head to the gate. As they make their way through the terminal, Marcus notices the glances. He's used to them by now, the slight double takes, the momentary puzzlement from strangers trying to place the relationship between the tall black teenager and the much lighter-skinned little girl with curly hair who holds his hand and chatters excitedly. Eliza's mother is white, and Sophia has inherited enough of those features to sometimes cause confusion among strangers. Usually, Marcus ignores it. Today, feeling the weight of responsibility for his sister, each curious glance feels more weighted. Gate C-17 is already filling with passengers when they arrive. Marcus guides Sophia to 2 empty seats near the charging station so he can top up his phone battery before the flight. Now remember what Mom said, he tells Sophia as she pulls out her coloring book. We stay together at all times. If you need to use the bathroom, you tell me. If you get tired or scared on the plane, you tell me. I'm in charge of keeping you safe until we reach Grandma, okay? Okay, Sophia agrees easily. Can I color the dragon purple? Dragons can be any color you want them to be, Marcus assures her, plugging in his phone. As he does, he notices an older white couple across from them, watching their interaction with expressions he can't quite read. The woman catches his eye and smiles warmly. You're doing a wonderful job with your sister, she says. My grandson is about her age, and he wouldn't sit still like that for a second. The simple acknowledgement, the assumption that he and Sophia are siblings despite their different appearances, the recognition of his care for her, feels like a small victory. Thank you, Marcus replies. She's usually much more energetic. I think the early morning has calmed her down a bit. I'm Carol, the woman introduces herself. And this is my husband, Richard. We're heading to Chicago to visit our daughter and grandchildren, too. I'm Marcus, and this is Sophia, he responds, relaxing slightly. We're going to see our grandmother. The conversation flows easily after that. Carol and Richard are retired teachers from Connecticut, visiting their daughter's family for her birthday. They share pictures of their grandchildren, and Sophia proudly shows them her coloring progress. It's a pleasant, ordinary interaction that makes the wait time pass quickly. The gate agent announces pre-boarding for families with young children and passengers needing assistance. Marcus gathers their things, ensuring Sophia has her backpack. That's us, he tells her. Remember, you need to hold my hand until we're on the plane. But we're in first class, Sophia says, her voice carrying in the crowded gate area. Daddy got us first-class tickets. Do we go with the fancy people? Marcus laughs at her terminology. First-class boards after pre-boarding, but since you're under 12, we can go now if you want. Sophia considers this seriously. I want to go with the fancy people, she decides, making Carol and Richard chuckle. Enjoy your flight, Carol says as they prepare to part ways. It was lovely meeting you both. Marcus guides Sophia toward the seating area reserved for first-class passengers, away from the growing line for pre-boarding. As they settle into the plush seats, he notices a flight attendant, Diane, according to her name tag, watching them with a slight frown. He straightens instinctively, making sure his Stanford sweatshirt is fully visible, a habit his father had once sadly noted was like wearing armor. Marcus had understood what he meant even at 14. Sometimes the right school name, the right clothes, the right words could provide a thin shield against certain assumptions. The gate agent announces first-class boarding, and Marcus stands, taking Sophia's hand. They join the short line of business travelers and well-dressed couples, Sophia practically bouncing with excitement. Boarding passes, please, the gate agent says when they reach the front of the line. Marcus pulls up the mobile boarding passes on his phone, holding the screen toward the scanner. The machine beeps confirmation, and the gate agent smiles at Sophia. Enjoy your first-class experience, young lady, she says. They're almost to the jet bridge entrance when Diane steps forward, blocking their path. Excuse me, she says, her voice professional but cool. May I see your boarding passes again? Marcus keeps his expression neutral as he shows her the phone screen again. Is there a problem? Diane studies the boarding passes longer than seems necessary, her eyes flicking between the screen and Marcus's face. Are your parents boarding separately? Our parents aren't flying with us today, Marcus explains calmly. We're traveling to visit our grandmother. Something in Diane's expression shifts, a slight hardening around the eyes. And your parents purchased these first-class tickets for you? Marcus feels a familiar heat rising in his chest, a mixture of indignation and that particular exhaustion that comes from having to justify your presence in spaces where others move freely. But he keeps his voice level, aware of Sophia's hand in his and the line of passengers building behind them. Yes, our father upgraded our tickets this morning. Is there something wrong with them? Diane's smile doesn't reach her eyes. I'll need to verify this, if you could step aside for a moment. But our seats are 2A and 2B, Marcus protests, holding up his phone as evidence. It shows right here that. Sir, I'm going to need you to lower your voice and step aside, Diane interrupts, her tone sharpening. There have been incidents of fraudulent upgrades, and I'm simply following protocol. The use of sir, not young man, or even his name, which is clearly displayed on the boarding pass, strikes Marcus as deliberate, an aging up that transforms him from teenager to threatening adult in a linguistic sleight of hand he's witnessed before. Sophia looks up at him, confused. Marcus, why can't we get on the plane? Are we in trouble? No, sweetie, we're not in trouble, he assures her, squeezing her hand. There's just a misunderstanding about our tickets. Passengers flow around them, some casting curious glances, others deliberately avoiding eye contact. Carol and Richard have joined the regular boarding line and watch the scene with growing concern. Perhaps I can help, a man in his 60s offers, stepping out of the first-class line. I'm a platinum member, maybe there's... Thank you, but this is an airline security matter, Diane cuts him off. She turns back to Marcus, her hand now resting near the radio clipped to her uniform. I'm going to need to see some identification. Marcus reaches for his wallet with deliberate slowness, keenly aware of how any sudden movement might be interpreted. He produces his driver's license and school ID, handing them to Diane with steady hands that belie the anger and humiliation coursing through him. Diane examines the IDs, then looks back at the boarding passes on his phone. Her expression remains skeptical. These seats are in our highest fare class, she says, as if this alone is evidence of wrongdoing. And you're telling me your parents purchased them for two minors traveling alone? Yes, Marcus replies, his patience wearing thin but his voice remaining controlled. My father is Michael Johnson. He's a business consultant who works with Atlantic Airways. He upgraded our tickets this morning as a surprise. The mention of his father's connection to the airline seems to only increase Diane's suspicion. I see. And you expect me to believe that a consultant would have the authority to arrange complimentary upgrades? They're not complimentary, Marcus clarifies, frustration finally edging into his voice. He paid for them. Look, can you just call him? I can give you his number and he can verify everything. Marcus, I'm scared, Sophia whispers, pressing against his side. Her eyes have filled with tears, and the sight of them ignites something protective in Marcus's chest. It's okay, Soph, he says softly before looking back at Diane. Please, my sister is getting upset. Our tickets are valid. We're just trying to visit our grandmother. For a moment, Diane seems to waver, her eyes moving to Sophia's distressed face. But then she glances at the growing crowd of onlookers, at the disruption to the boarding process, and something in her posture hardens. Wait here, she instructs, stepping away to confer with another flight attendant, an older man whose name tag reads James. Marcus can see them speaking in hushed tones, James occasionally glancing their way with a furrowed brow. The scene is humiliatingly public, playing out in front of dozens of strangers, many of whom are now openly watching. What's happening? Sophia asks, her small voice wobbling. They're just checking our tickets, Marcus tells her, trying to keep his voice light. Everything's going to be fine. But when Diane returns, her expression is resolute. I'm sorry, but I can't allow you to board without verification from an adult family member, she announces. If you could provide your father's contact information. I already offered that, Marcus interrupts, his composure finally cracking. 5 minutes ago, you ignored me. The slight raising of his voice seems to confirm something for Diane. Her hand moves to her radio. I need you to calm down, sir, she says, emphasis again on the last word. Aggressive behavior will not help this situation. I'm not being aggressive, Marcus protests, acutely aware of how this exchange appears to onlookers, how quickly a black teenager's legitimate frustration can be reframed as threatening. I'm trying to board a flight with valid tickets that my father purchased. Diane unclips her radio. Security to gate C-17, she says clearly. Potential boarding issue. The words hang in the air like a thunderclap. Sophia begins to cry in earnest now, and Marcus kneels beside her, trying to provide comfort while his own heart races with a toxic mixture of anger, humiliation, and the particular fear that comes from being a young black man suddenly labeled a security issue in a public space. It's okay, Sophia, he murmurs, wiping her tears with his thumb. It's just a mix-up. We'll sort it out. Carol breaks away from the regular boarding line, approaching them with concern. Is there anything I can do to help? She asks, directing the question at both Marcus and Diane. We were just speaking with these children. They're clearly just trying to visit their grandmother. Thank you, ma'am, but this is an airline matter, Diane responds stiffly. The crowd at the gate has grown silent, watching the drama unfold with that particular mixture of voyeuristic interest and discomfort that public confrontations tend to elicit. Marcus feels the weight of dozens of eyes on him, judging, assessing, some sympathetic, others suspicious. And then, cutting through the tension like a knife, a voice speaks from the back of the crowd. What seems to be the problem here? The crowd parts almost instinctively, revealing a tall, distinguished-looking man in his 60s, dressed in an impeccable suit that speaks of authority and wealth. His silver hair is perfectly styled, his posture commanding without being aggressive. Diane's expression shifts instantly from righteous authority to uncertainty. Mr. Thompson, she says, recognition clear in her voice. I was just addressing a security concern with Marcus Johnson, yes, William Thompson interrupts smoothly, moving forward to stand beside Marcus and Sophia. Michael Johnson's son and daughter. Michael mentioned they would be flying with us today. The silence that follows is deafening. Diane's face drains of color as the implications sink in. You know my dad? Marcus asks, surprise momentarily displacing his anger. Thompson turns to him with a genuine smile. Your father is helping us redesign our minority business partnership program. We had lunch just last month. He kneels down to Sophia's level, his voice gentling. "And you must be Sophia. Your dad showed me pictures of you and your brother. He's very proud of both of you." Sophia sniffles, studying him with red-rimmed eyes. "Are you the boss of the airplane?" Thompson laughs, a warm, genuine sound that seems to break some of the tension in the air. Something like that. "I'm the CEO of Atlantic Airways." He straightens, turning to face Diane with an expression that has cooled considerably. "Ms. Parker, I believe these young people have valid first-class tickets for today's flight. Is there some reason they're being prevented from boarding?" Diane swallows visibly. "Sir, I was following protocol for suspected fraudulent upgrades. The system flagged." "The system," Thompson interrupts, his voice still pleasant but now edged with steel, "did not flag anything. I've just checked the passenger manifest myself. What the system shows is 2 fully paid first-class tickets for Marcus and Sophia Johnson." He turns to James, the senior flight attendant who has been watching the scene with growing discomfort. "James, would you please escort Marcus and Sophia to their seats? I believe the girl mentioned something about fancy cookies earlier." James steps forward immediately. "Of course, sir. Right this way, Mr. Johnson, Miss Johnson." As they move toward the jet bridge, Thompson places a gentle hand on Marcus's shoulder. "I apologize for this unfortunate incident. Please tell your father I said hello and that I look forward to our meeting on Monday." Marcus nods, still processing the sudden reversal of fortune. "Thank you, sir." "No thanks necessary," Thompson replies quietly. "Enjoy your flight." As they board the plane, Marcus can hear Thompson's voice behind them, addressing Diane with calm authority. "Miss Parker, I'd like to speak with you privately after this flight departs." The last thing Marcus sees before entering the aircraft is the stunned faces of the crowd, still watching as the airline CEO stands in the gate area, his mere presence having transformed what had been an escalating confrontation into a resolved situation. Inside the plane, James leads them to their first-class seats with an apologetic attentiveness that borders on obsequious. "Can I get either of you anything before takeoff?" he asks as they settle into the spacious leather seats. "Perhaps some hot chocolate for the young lady?" Sophia, already recovering from her tears with the remarkable resilience of childhood, nods enthusiastically. "With whipped cream?" "Absolutely with whipped cream," James confirms with a genuine smile. "And for you, sir?" he asks Marcus. The "sir" sounds different coming from James, respectful rather than accusatory. Marcus takes a deep breath, trying to release some of the tension still gripping his body. "Just water, thanks," he says, helping Sophia with her seatbelt. As James moves away to prepare their drinks, Sophia looks up at her brother with wide eyes. "That man saved us," she says, "like a superhero." Marcus smiles despite himself. "Not exactly a superhero, Soph, just someone who knew the truth and wasn't afraid to speak up." "Is that lady in trouble now?" Sophia asks, lowering her voice to a whisper. Marcus considers the question, unsure how to answer. The complexity of what just happened, the assumptions, the escalation, the public humiliation, and then the equally public intervention, feels too heavy to explain to a 6-year-old. "I think," he says carefully, "that sometimes people make mistakes because they believe things that aren't true, and when that happens, it's important for them to learn why they were wrong." Sophia nods sagely, as if this makes perfect sense to her. "Like when I thought monsters lived under my bed and you showed me there was nothing there but dust bunnies. Something like that," Marcus agrees, grateful for her simple wisdom. As the remaining passengers board, he feels the curious glances of those who witnessed the scene at the gate. Some offer sympathetic smiles, others avert their eyes uncomfortably. Carol and Richard, now making their way to economy class, pause briefly by their seats. "We're so glad that worked out," Carol says quietly. "What happened out there was wrong." "Thank you," Marcus replies, touched by her straightforward acknowledgement. As the doors close and the flight attendants begin their pre-flight preparations, Marcus pulls out his phone to send a quick text to his parents before switching to airplane mode. "Everything okay?" his father responds almost immediately. "You've boarded." Marcus hesitates, his thumbs hovering over the screen. How does he explain what just happened? Does he tell his father about the humiliation, the suspicion, the way Diane looked at him as if his mere presence in first class was evidence of wrongdoing? Does he mention Thompson's timely intervention? After a moment's consideration, he types, "All good, boarding now. Sophia loves first class already. Your boss says hi and see you Monday." He'll tell them the full story later in person. For now, as the plane begins to push back from the gate, he wants to focus on keeping Sophia's experience positive, on being the responsible big brother his parents trust him to be. Beside him, Sophia sips her hot chocolate, a whipped cream mustache forming on her upper lip. Her earlier tears are forgotten, replaced by excitement as the plane begins to taxi. "Marcus," she whispers, gripping his hand as the engines roar to life, "we're flying." And just like that, They're airborne, leaving behind the ugliness of the gate incident as they climb into the clear blue sky, Chicago-bound. But though the confrontation is physically behind them, Marcus knows that its echoes will remain, becoming yet another story in his growing collection of moments. Those experiences that his white friends will never fully understand, that his parents will recognize with a mixture of anger and resigned familiarity, that shape how he moves through the world. For now, though, he squeezes Sophia's hand and points out the shrinking landscape below, determined to make this journey everything his little sister deserves it to be. 30,000 feet above the patchwork landscape of the American Midwest, Marcus stares out the window, lost in thought. Beside him, Sophia has fallen asleep, her small body curled up in the spacious first-class seat, her half-eaten cookie still clutched in one hand. The hum of the engines provides a soothing white noise that usually lulls Marcus into relaxation, but today his mind remains stubbornly active, replaying the scene at the gate in an endless loop. James approaches with a soft smile, carefully collecting Sophia's empty hot chocolate mug without waking her. "Can I get you anything else?" he asks Marcus quietly. "No, thank you," Marcus replies, then hesitates. "Actually, can I ask you something?" James nods, settling into the empty seat across the aisle temporarily. "Of course. Does that happen often? What happened at the gate, I mean?" The flight attendant's expression grows contemplative. "Suspected fraud cases, they happen occasionally, but that's not what I'm asking," Marcus interrupts gently, "and I think you know it." James meets his gaze, and in that moment a silent understanding passes between them. "No," he says finally, "it shouldn't happen at all. And I'm sorry it happened to you today." The simple acknowledgement loosens something in Marcus's chest. "Thank you for saying that. I've been flying for 27 years, James continues, his voice still low to avoid waking Sophia. "I've seen a lot of changes in this industry, most for the better, but some things," he shakes his head, "some things change more slowly than they should." "My dad says the same thing," Marcus admits. "He says you have to celebrate progress without accepting that partial progress is enough." James smiles. "Your father sounds like a wise man. Is he the one who knows Mr. Thompson?" "Apparently," Marcus says, still surprised by that connection himself. "He's working with the airline on something, but I didn't know he'd met the CEO directly." "Mr. Thompson is unusual for someone in his position," James offers. "He started as a baggage handler in the 1980s and worked his way up. Never forgot where he came from." He stands, preparing to return to his duties. "Try to enjoy the rest of your flight, Marcus. Don't let one person's mistake ruin your trip." As James moves away, Marcus turns back to the window, watching clouds drift beneath the aircraft's wing. His phone vibrates in his pocket, a text from his father that came through on the plane's Wi-Fi. "Did you actually see William Thompson at the airport, or was that a joke?" Marcus smiles slightly, typing back, "Not a joke, he was there, helped us when there was a problem at the gate, we'll explain later." Almost immediately, his phone buzzes again. "Problem, are you and Sophia okay?" "We're fine," Marcus assures him. "Sophia's asleep, having cookies in first class, tell you everything when we land." He puts his phone away, not wanting to worry his father mid-flight. The full story can wait until they're on the ground. Carol appears in the aisle, having made her way up from economy class. "I hope I'm not disturbing you," she says quietly, noticing Sophia's sleeping form. "I just wanted to check that you two were doing all right after what happened." "We're fine," Marcus assures her. "Thank you for speaking up back there. It meant a lot." Carol's face clouds. "I should have said more. Richard and I were talking about it, and, well, we both felt we should have been more forceful in supporting you." "You did more than most people would," Marcus tells her honestly. "That's the problem, isn't it?" Carol sighs. "The bar is set so low for being a decent human being." She reaches into her purse and pulls out a business card. "I know this might seem strange, but I'd like you to have this, if you ever need anything in Chicago or if you want to talk about what happened today. Richard and I would be happy to hear from you." Marcus accepts the card. Carol Mitchell, Ph.D., Professor Emeritus of Sociology, Northwestern University, with a surprised smile. "Thank you. My work focused on systemic inequality in educational institutions," she explains. "What I witnessed today was a textbook example of the issues I spent my career researching. Sometimes it helps to process these experiences by talking about them." "I might take you up on that," Marcus says, genuinely touched by her concern. As Carol returns to her seat, Marcus tucks the card into his wallet, feeling a complex mixture of emotions. The ugliness of the gate incident remains, but alongside it now are these moments of unexpected connection and support. James's quiet acknowledgement, Carol's genuine concern, Thompson's authoritative intervention. Sophia stirs beside him, blinking sleepily. "Are we there yet?" "Not yet, sleepyhead," he says, brushing a crumb from her cheek. "About an hour to go." I dreamed we were flying on a dragon instead of a plane, she informs him seriously. And you were the dragon captain. Dragon captain, huh? Sounds like a cool job. It was, Sophia confirms. You had a special hat and everything. Their conversation drifts to the comfortable nonsense that siblings share, Sophia's dream expanding into an elaborate fantasy that Marcus helps her develop, adding details and asking questions that make her giggle. For these precious minutes, the weight of the morning's confrontation lifts, replaced by the simple joy of making his sister laugh. But as the seatbelt sign illuminates and the captain announces their initial descent into Chicago, the reality of what awaits them returns to Marcus's thoughts. Soon they'll land. Soon he'll need to explain to his grandmother why Sophia might mention a mean lady at the airport, why the airplane boss had to help them. Soon he'll need to decide how much to tell his parents, knowing that the full story will hurt them in that particular way that parents hurt when they cannot protect their children from the world's ugly realities. James passes through the cabin, checking that everyone is prepared for landing. He pauses by their seats, helping Sophia adjust her tray table and offering her a mint for her ears during descent. Your grandmother is meeting you at the gate, he confirms with Marcus. Yes, she should be there when we arrive. James nods thoughtfully. I'll escort you both to meet her if that's all right. Standard procedure for unaccompanied minors. They both know it isn't standard procedure for teenagers traveling with younger siblings, especially in first class, but Marcus understands the gesture for what it is. A small attempt to ensure their journey concludes without further incident. Thank you, he says simply. As the plane banks into its final approach, the Chicago skyline comes into view, gleaming in the late morning sunlight. Sophia presses her face to the window in wonder, pointing out buildings and asking rapid-fire questions that Marcus does his best to answer. The wheels touch down with a gentle bump and squeal, and Sophia claps delightedly. We did it, she announces, as if the successful landing were a personal accomplishment. We sure did, Marcus agrees, feeling the tension in his shoulders begin to release as the plane taxis toward the terminal. Whatever happened at their departure gate, they've arrived safely. His most important job, keeping Sophia safe and happy, has been accomplished. As they disembark, James walking just ahead of them, Marcus spots his grandmother immediately, a tall, elegant woman in her 70s with silver-streaked hair and Sophia's same bright eyes. Dr. Alina Richards, retired pediatrician and eternal force of nature, waves enthusiastically as she spots her grandchildren. There's my babies, she calls, drawing smiles from nearby passengers. Sophia breaks free from Marcus's grip, running the last few steps into their grandmother's open arms. Grandma, we flew first class, and I had hot chocolate with whipped cream on the plane. First class? Alina raises an eyebrow at Marcus as she embraces him. Your father's been showing off again, has he? Something like that, Marcus replies, already dreading the moment when he'll need to explain the full story. But that moment isn't now. Now is for hugs and exclamations over how much they've grown, for Sophia's breathless recounting of her dragon dream, for the familiar comfort of being with family who love you unconditionally. As they walk toward baggage claim, Alina's arm around Marcus's shoulders, she leans in to whisper, There's a story here you're not telling me, isn't there? Marcus nods slightly. Later, he promises. Later it is, she agrees easily, squeezing his shoulder. For now, let's get you two home. I've got fresh-baked cookies waiting, and your grandfather's fired up the grill for lunch. The mention of his grandfather, Alina's second husband, whom she married after Marcus's biological grandfather passed away when Marcus was 10, brings a genuine smile to his face. Thomas Richards, a retired high school principal with a booming laugh and endless patience, makes the best barbecue ribs in 3 states, according to family legend. As they exit the secure area, Marcus spots James one last time, the flight attendant offering a small wave and a genuine smile before turning back toward the terminal. Marcus waves back, a silent thanks passing between them. Who's that? Alina asks, ever observant. Someone who helped us, Marcus says simply, when we needed it. Alina studies her grandson's face for a moment, reading something in his expression that prompts her to nod thoughtfully. Well then. We'll have to be sure to include him in our evening prayers tonight, won't we? Yes, Marcus agrees. I think we will. As they step outside into the bright Chicago sunshine, Marcus feels the weight of the morning's events begin to lighten, not gone but bearable, another experience to process, another story to carry. Ahead lies a weekend of his grandmother's cooking, his grandfather's stories, Sophia's laughter, and the particular peace that comes from being with family who see you, truly see you, for exactly who you are. And for now, in this moment, that is enough. 3 hours into their weekend visit, while Sophia naps upstairs after the excitement of the morning, Marcus sits at his grandparents' kitchen table. a mug of hot tea warming his hands as he finally shares the full story of what happened at the airport. Alina and Thomas listen without interruption, their expressions shifting from concern to anger to pride as Marcus recounts each detail: Diane's suspicion, the public confrontation, Thompson's unexpected intervention. When he finishes, the kitchen is quiet except for the gentle ticking of the vintage wall clock and the distant sounds of neighborhood children playing outside. Thomas breaks the silence first, his deep voice controlled but edged with anger. "I'm sorry you had to experience that, son. And I'm damn proud of how you handled it." Alina reaches across the table to grasp Marcus's hand. "You protected Sophia through all of that. You kept your composure when many grown men would have lost theirs." "I almost did," Marcus admits. "When she called security, I felt like I was going to explode." "But you didn't," Thomas points out, "and that takes remarkable strength." Alina's expression turns thoughtful. "Have you told your parents yet?" Marcus shakes his head. "Just texted Dad that there was a problem, but we're fine. I'll call them tonight." "Your father will want to address this with the airline," Thomas says, not as a question but as a certainty. "I know," Marcus sighs, "but part of me just wants to forget it happened, move on." Alina's grip on his hand tightens slightly. "There's wisdom in choosing your battles," she says carefully, "but there's also power in standing up and saying this happened and it was wrong." "Your grandmother's right," Thomas adds. "Sometimes silence protects the people who need to change the most." Marcus nods slowly, considering their words. "Mr. Thompson, the CEO, he seemed really angry about what happened. He told Diane he wanted to speak with her privately after our flight left." "Good," Thomas says firmly. "That's exactly what should happen." "But what if she loses her job?" Marcus asks, the question that's been troubling him since they landed. "I mean, what she did was wrong, but I don't want to be responsible for someone getting fired." Alina's expression softens. "That compassion speaks well of your character, Marcus, but remember, if there are consequences for her actions, you didn't create them, she did." "Your grandmother's right," Thomas agrees. "Accountability isn't punishment, it's how we learn and grow." The conversation continues as they help Alina prepare dinner, Marcus chopping vegetables, while Thomas seasons the meat for his famous ribs. They speak of wider issues now, of similar experiences Thomas had faced in his decades as an educator, of the subtle biases Alina encountered as one of the few black female pediatricians in her hospital, of the ways the world has changed and the ways it stubbornly refuses to. "The thing that bothers me most," Marcus confesses as he slices bell peppers, "is wondering how often this happens to people who don't happen to have a connection to the CEO. What if Dad wasn't working with Atlantic Airways? What if Mr. Thompson hadn't been there?" Thomas pauses his meal preparation, fixing Marcus with a serious gaze. "That right there, that's why speaking up matters, not just for yourself, but for everyone else who might face the same situation without your advantages." "Your grandfather's right," Alina adds. "Change happens when people with privilege use it to challenge the system, not just to protect themselves from it." The sound of small feet on the stairs announces Sophia's awakening from her nap. The conversation shifts naturally as she bounces into the kitchen, hair mussed from sleep, immediately asking if she can help with dinner. "Perfect timing," Alina tells her. "I need my special helper to set the table." As Sophia happily counts out forks and napkins, Marcus's phone rings. His father's name flashes on the screen. "I should take this," he says, stepping onto the back porch for privacy. "Hey, Dad," he answers, settling into one of the wooden rocking chairs that line his grandparents' spacious porch. "Marcus." His father's voice carries a mixture of relief and tension. "You're at Grandma's safely?" "We're fine," Marcus assures him. "Sophia's helping with dinner. Grandpa's making his famous ribs." "That's good." There's a pause, and Marcus can almost see his father gathering himself. "Son, I need you to tell me exactly what happened at the airport this morning. William Thompson called me." Marcus takes a deep breath and begins the story again, this time with the knowledge that his father, who understands these situations with the bone-deep weariness of someone who has lived through too many similar moments, is listening. When he finishes, the line is silent for several seconds. "Dad, you still there?" "I'm here." Michael's voice is tight with controlled emotion. "I'm just processing, making sure I don't say something I shouldn't while you're listening." "I'm okay, Dad," Marcus says softly. "Really, Mr. Thompson stepped in before things got too bad." "The fact that things got bad at all is the problem," Michael replies. "The fact that my son and daughter can't board a plane with tickets I purchased without being treated like criminals." "What did Mr. Thompson tell you?" Marcus asks. "That there was an incident at the gate involving you and a flight attendant named Diane Parker, that he intervened, and that he wanted me to hear the full story from you rather than assuming what happened." "He seems like a good guy," Marcus offers. "He is," Michael agrees. "And he's furious about this, Marcus. He's launching a full investigation. He wants to speak with you when you return if you're comfortable with that." Marcus considers this. I think I am. If it might help make sure this doesn't happen to someone else. Pride fills Michael's voice. That's my boy, always thinking beyond yourself. He pauses. Your mother wants to speak with you, but before I hand over the phone, I'm sorry, Marcus. I'm sorry this happened, and I'm so damn proud of how you handled it. Thanks, Dad, Marcus says, his throat tightening unexpectedly. A moment later, his mother's voice comes through, calm but with an undercurrent of steel that Marcus recognizes from her rare moments of true anger. Marcus, are you really okay, honey? I'm fine, Mom. Sophia's fine, too. She was upset for a little while, but she bounced back pretty quickly. Children are resilient, Eliza says, her doctor's perspective showing. But these experiences still leave marks even when we think they don't. I know, Marcus acknowledges. We'll talk about it more when we get home. We will, she confirms, then adds more gently. Try to enjoy your weekend with Grandma and Grandpa, okay? Don't let this overshadow your visit. I won't, he promises. After exchanging a few more reassurances and saying goodbye to both parents, Marcus remains on the porch, watching the sun begin its gradual descent toward the horizon. The conversation with his parents has left him feeling both supported and somehow more weighted with responsibility. Their pride in him, their anger on his behalf, their expectation that he will use this experience to create positive change. It's a lot to carry at 17. The screen door creaks open and Thomas steps out, 2 glasses of lemonade in hand. He offers one to Marcus before settling into the adjacent rocking chair. Your parents? He asks simply. Marcus nods. Dad said Mr. Thompson called him. There's going to be an investigation. Thomas sips his lemonade thoughtfully. Good, that's as it should be. They rock in companionable silence for a few minutes, watching a pair of cardinals flit between the trees at the edge of the yard. Finally, Thomas speaks again. You know, when I was a principal, I had a saying I used to tell my teachers. We're not just teaching subjects, we're teaching citizens. Marcus looks at him questioningly. What I meant, Thomas continues, was that education isn't just about facts and figures. It's about shaping how people move through the world, how they treat others, how they respond when they witness injustice. He turns to face Marcus directly. What happened today was wrong, but how you respond to it, that's your chance to educate. Not just this Diane person, not just the airline, but everyone who hears about what happened. That's power, son. Marcus considers his grandfather's words, rolling them over in his mind like smooth stones. I never thought about it that way. Most people don't, Thomas says with a slight smile. They think education only happens in classrooms, but the most important lessons happen in moments like the one you experienced today. From inside, they hear Alina calling them for dinner. As they stand to go in, Thomas places a gentle hand on Marcus's shoulder. Your grandfather, your mother's father, was a civil rights activist. Did you know that? Marcus nods. He's seen the old photographs, heard some of the stories. He used to say, the work is never finished, but every step matters. What you do about today, that's your step, Marcus. And knowing you, I believe it will matter. With those words hanging in the air between them, they head inside to join the family dinner, where the conversation will shift to lighter topics, where Sophia will regale them with stories from school, where the weight of the morning's events will temporarily lift in the warmth of family connection. But Thomas's words remain with Marcus, taking root alongside the experience itself, shaping how he will come to understand what happened, and more importantly, what should happen next. Monday morning arrives with the peculiar swiftness that marks the end of enjoyable weekends. Marcus and Sophia board their return flight without incident, their grandparents watching until they disappear through security. This time, their journey passes without drama. The flight attendants are professionally courteous, and no one questions their presence in first class. By early afternoon, they're home, greeted by their mother's tight hugs and their father's obvious relief at having them back safely. Sophia launches immediately into excited recountings of everything they did in Chicago, from feeding ducks at the park to helping Grandma bake her famous chocolate chip cookies. Marcus unpacks more slowly, arranging his things back in their familiar places, the routine helping to ground him after the emotional turbulence of the weekend. As he sorts through his laundry, his father appears in the doorway. Got a minute? Michael asks. Sure, Marcus says, sitting on the edge of his bed. Michael joins him, hands clasped between his knees. William Thompson called again this morning. He'd like to meet with us tomorrow if you're willing. Marcus nods slowly. What's going to happen? He wants to hear directly from you about what happened, and he wants to personally apologize. Michael pauses. He's also asked if we'd be willing to participate in a training program they're developing, using your experience as a case study. A case study, Marcus repeats, testing how the words feel. So other employees can learn from what happened. Exactly, but only if you're comfortable with it. This is completely your decision, Marcus. If you want to put this behind you and move on, that's your right. Marcus thinks of Thomas's words on the porch, about education happening outside classrooms, about each step in the work mattering. He thinks of Carol Mitchell, the retired sociology professor who gave him her card and spoke of systemic inequality. He thinks of James, the flight attendant who acknowledged the wrong without defensiveness. I want to do it, he decides, if it might help make things better for someone else. Pride shines in Michael's eyes. I thought you might say that. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out a folded newspaper article. There's something else you should see. Marcus unfolds the paper, a printout of an online news story dated that morning. The headline reads, Atlantic Airways CEO personally intervenes in alleged racial profiling incident. It's already in the news, Marcus asks, scanning the article with growing disbelief. Social media, Michael explains. Several passengers recorded parts of what happened at the gate. It started trending yesterday. The article quotes an unnamed passenger describing how a black teenager and his younger sister were prevented from boarding despite having valid tickets, how security was called without justification, and how the airline's CEO personally intervened. There's no mention of Marcus and Sophia by name, but the details are unmistakable. Thompson's been getting ahead of it, Michael continues. He issued a statement yesterday acknowledging that the incident occurred and promising a full investigation and revised training protocols. Marcus feels a complex swirl of emotions, unease at having his experience made public without his knowledge, but also a strange sense of validation. What happened to him mattered enough that strangers felt compelled to record it, to share it, to demand accountability. There's more, Michael says, his expression growing serious. Diane Parker has been placed on administrative leave pending the investigation, and she's requested to meet with us as part of the process. Meet with us? Marcus repeats, surprised. Why? Apparently she wants to apologize in person. Michael watches his son carefully. Again, this is entirely your decision. You don't owe her your time or forgiveness. Marcus stares at the newspaper article, at the clinical description of what was, for him, a deeply personal and humiliating experience. Do you think I should do? I think, Michael says slowly, that you should do whatever feels right to you, not what you think you should do or what you think others expect you to do, what feels right to you. Downstairs, they can hear Sophia chattering excitedly to Eliza, her voice carrying through the house with the particular resonance of happy childhood. The sound grounds Marcus, reminding him of what matters most, his family, their safety, their dignity. I want to hear what she has to say, he decides finally. Not for her sake, but for mine, and maybe for Sophia's too, eventually. Michael nods, respecting his son's decision without further comment. He stands preparing to leave Marcus to finish unpacking, but pauses at the doorway. Your mother and I, he begins, then stops, seeming to search for the right words. We've tried to prepare you for these moments, but knowing they'll come doesn't make them easier to witness when they happen to your child. I know, Dad, Marcus says softly, but I'm okay, really. Michael studies his son's face for a long moment, seeing perhaps the echoes of his own experiences, the weight of understanding that comes too early to young black men in America. Yes, he says finally, I believe you are. The Atlantic Airways corporate headquarters occupies 15 floors of a gleaming downtown office building. The lobby is all polished marble and understated luxury, with the company's logo, a stylized blue wing, featured prominently behind the reception desk. Marcus adjusts his tie nervously as they check in, acutely aware that he's wearing his interview suit, the one reserved for college visits and formal occasions. His father, in his usual impeccable business attire, places a reassuring hand on his shoulder as they're escorted to the elevators. Remember, Michael says quietly as they ascend to the executive floor, you have nothing to apologize for, nothing to justify. You're here because you've chosen to help them do better. The elevator doors open directly into a reception area where a professional-looking woman in her 40s greets them warmly. Mr. Johnson, Marcus, welcome. Mr. Thompson is expecting you. Can I get you anything? Water? Coffee? We're fine, thank you, Michael answers for both of them. She leads them down a corridor lined with photographs documenting the airline's history. Vintage planes, uniformed crews from different decades, global destinations served by the carrier. At the end of the hall, she knocks on a substantial wooden door before opening it. Mr. Thompson, the Johnsons are here. William Thompson rises from behind an expansive desk, coming around to greet them with a warm handshake. Michael, good to see you again, and Marcus, I'm glad you could come. The CEO's office is spacious but less ostentatious than Marcus expected. One wall features a large window overlooking the city. Another displays model aircraft from throughout aviation history. Family photos occupy a prominent place on the desk. Please sit, Thompson gestures to a comfortable seating area near the window. Once they're settled, Thompson leans forward slightly, his expression serious. "First, Marcus, I want to personally apologize for what happened to you and your sister at our gate. It was unacceptable, and I'm deeply sorry that you experienced that while traveling with us." "Thank you, sir," Marcus responds, finding his voice steadier than he expected. "I've reviewed the security footage," Thompson continues, "spoken with several witnesses and read the statements from the employees involved. There's no question in my mind that what happened was the result of bias and unwarranted assumptions. It shouldn't have happened, and we're taking steps to ensure it doesn't happen again." He turns to Michael. "The training program we discussed, using this incident as a case study, would be a significant part of those steps, but only with your permission, of course." "Marcus has decided he's willing to participate," Michael confirms. "We appreciate your commitment to addressing this directly rather than minimizing it." Thompson nods. "Unfortunately, I've seen too many organizations try to sweep these incidents under the rug. It solves nothing and prevents real change." He pauses. "There's something else you should know. Ms. Parker has requested to meet with you today. She's here in the building." Marcus and Michael exchange glances. "She's prepared to offer a formal apology," Thompson explains. "But I want to be absolutely clear, you are under no obligation to meet with her. This is entirely your choice." Marcus takes a deep breath. "I'm willing to hear what she has to say." "Are you certain?" Thompson asks, looking between Marcus and his father. "Yes," Marcus confirms. "I think it's important for everyone involved." Thompson studies him with newfound respect. "That shows remarkable maturity, Marcus." He presses an intercom button. "Andrea, could you please ask Ms. Parker to join us now?" The minutes that follow seem to stretch endlessly. Marcus finds himself unconsciously straightening his tie again, preparing for a confrontation he never sought but now feels necessary to his own sense of closure. When the door finally opens, Diane Parker enters, looking markedly different from the confident, accusatory figure at the gate. Her uniform is replaced by a conservative business suit, her expression subdued and anxious. She hesitates visibly upon seeing Marcus. "Please come in, Ms. Parker," Thompson says, his tone professional but cool. Diane approaches the seating area but remains standing. "Thank you for agreeing to see me," she says, addressing both Marcus and Michael. I know that nothing I say can undo what happened, but I needed to apologize to you in person." She turns specifically to Marcus. "What I did was wrong. I made assumptions based on biases I didn't want to admit I had. I humiliated you publicly, frightened your sister, and potentially put you in danger by calling security without justification. There's no excuse for that, and I am deeply, truly sorry." The directness of her apology, the absence of qualifiers like "if you were offended" or deflections about "following protocol," surprises Marcus. He had prepared himself for defensiveness, for partial acknowledgments that place some of the blame on him. "Since being placed on leave," Diane continues, "I've had a lot of time to reflect on my actions and the harm they caused. I've begun working with a diversity consultant to address my biases. It doesn't change what happened, but I want you to know I'm committed to doing better." She looks directly at Marcus, her expression genuinely remorseful. "I don't expect forgiveness, and I know that one incident like this can have lasting effects. I just wanted you to hear directly from me that I know I was wrong, and I'm sorry." The room falls silent as her words hang in the air. Marcus feels the weight of expectation, from his father, from Thompson, perhaps even from Diane herself, waiting for his response. What would forgiveness mean in this moment? What would justice look like? The questions he's been wrestling with since the incident suddenly feel immediate and pressing. "Thank you for your apology," he says finally, his voice steady. "I appreciate your honesty about what happened and why. That matters." Relief flickers across Diane's face, though she remains solemn. "Thank you for hearing me out. I know you didn't have to." "Ms. Parker," Michael speaks up, his tone measured but firm, "my son has shown remarkable grace today. But I hope you understand that this incident represents something much larger than a single mistake. It's part of a pattern that Black people, including children, face every day." "I'm beginning to understand that better," Diane acknowledges, "and I know that understanding isn't enough without changed behavior." Thompson, who has been observing the exchange carefully, turns to Marcus. "We're developing a comprehensive training program around this incident and others like it. Ms. Parker has agreed to participate in that training to share her perspective on how and why these situations develop. Would you be willing to record a statement about your experience that could be included in that training?" Marcus considers the request. His initial instinct is to say yes, to contribute to something that might prevent another teenager from experiencing what he did. But a new thought occurs to him. "What about Sophia?" he asks. "She was there too. She was scared and confused, and she didn't understand why we were being treated differently." Thompson looks surprised by this perspective. "You're right. The impact on your sister is an important part of this story. Maybe, Marcus suggests, finding confidence in advocating not for himself but for Sophia, my parents could record something about how this affected her, about how they had to explain to a 6-year-old why someone thought her brother might be dangerous or dishonest. Michael places a supportive hand on his son's shoulder, pride evident in his expression. That's an excellent suggestion, Thompson agrees. It would add an important dimension to the training. Diane has grown visibly uncomfortable, but she nods in acknowledgement. Your sister's experience matters too. I didn't think about how my actions would affect her. That's part of the problem, Marcus says quietly. People often don't think about the ripple effects of these moments. They don't see the conversations families have afterward, the adjustments we make, the trust that gets eroded. A heavy silence falls over the room as his words sink in. Thompson is the first to break it. Marcus, you've given us a lot to think about and a lot to work with in developing this training. He turns to Michael. Would you and your wife be willing to consult with our team as we develop this program? Your professional perspectives would be invaluable. I believe we would, Michael responds. Eliza's schedule is challenging, but I know she'd make time for this. The meeting continues for another half hour, discussing logistics and next steps. Diane is eventually dismissed, leaving with a final apology and a subdued expression that suggests the encounter has affected her deeply. As the door closes behind her, Thompson turns to Marcus with newfound respect. You handled that with remarkable maturity. Many adults wouldn't have been as composed or thoughtful. I had good examples, Marcus replies, glancing at his father. Indeed you did, Thompson agrees. Before you go, there's one more thing. He retrieves an envelope from his desk. This is for you and Sophia, lifetime premium status on Atlantic Airways. It means you'll always have priority boarding, complimentary upgrades when available, and access to our lounges, no matter what class ticket you purchase. Marcus accepts the envelope, unsure how to feel about the gesture. Is it compensation? Recognition, an attempt to ensure their loyalty despite what happened. Thompson seems to read his uncertainty. This isn't to make up for what happened. Nothing can do that. It's simply to ensure that you and your sister never have to worry about your right to be in any space on any of our aircraft again. Thank you, Marcus says simply, understanding the intention behind the gesture. As they prepare to leave, Thompson walks them to the door. Michael, I'll see you Monday for our scheduled meeting. And Marcus, he extends his hand, thank you for your willingness to help us learn from this. It shows extraordinary character. In the elevator descending to the lobby, Michael turns to his son. I couldn't be prouder of how you handled yourself in there. I just said what I thought, Marcus shrugs, though he feels a quiet pride in his father's words. That's exactly what made it powerful, Michael tells him. Your honest perspective. Your willingness to advocate not just for yourself, but for your sister. As they exit the building into the bright afternoon sunlight, Marcus feels something shift within him, a subtle but significant change in how he sees himself and his place in the world. The incident at the gate had made him feel powerless, humiliated, reduced to others' perceptions of him. But here, in its aftermath, he had found his voice. Had used it not just to seek justice for himself, but to potentially create change for others. Dad, he says as they walk toward the parking garage, I think I know what I want to study in college. Oh, Michael glances at him with interest. Maybe law or public policy, something where I can work on making systems more just. The idea has been forming since his conversation with Thomas on the porch, taking clearer shape during the meeting with Thompson and Diane. Michael smiles, a complex mixture of pride and something like bittersweet understanding crossing his features. I think you'd excel at that. You have a natural sense of justice balanced with compassion. That's rare. I learned it from you and Mom, Marcus says simply. As they reach the car, Michael pauses, keys in hand, regarding his son with a mixture of pride and that particular parental ache that comes from seeing your child grow into their own person, shaped by their experiences, including the painful ones. You know, he says finally, when your mother and I were expecting you, we chose your name carefully. Marcus means warlike or dedicated to Mars, the god of war, but we didn't choose it for those meanings. You didn't? Marcus asks, curious. No. We chose it because of Marcus Garvey, who believed in the dignity and potential of black people when much of the world denied both. And because of Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor who wrote about justice, duty, and maintaining your principles even in difficult circumstances. Michael unlocks the car but makes no move to enter it yet. Watching you these past few days, how you've processed what happened, how you've chosen to respond, I see both those namesakes in you. And so much more that's uniquely yours. The words wash over Marcus like a blessing, affirming something he's been reaching toward understanding since the moment at the gate, that how we respond to injustice reveals and shapes who we are, perhaps even more than the injustice itself. Thanks, Dad, he says simply, words inadequate for the emotion behind them. As they drive home, the conversation shifts to lighter topics. Sophia's upcoming dance recital, the science project Marcus needs to finish this week, whether they should order pizza for dinner to celebrate the successful meeting. Normal family matters that feel all the more precious for the reminder of how quickly normality can be disrupted. Marcus gazes out the window, watching the city roll by, thinking about ripples, how one moment can spread outward, touching lives far beyond its origin point. The incident at the gate had created ripples. In his own life, in Sophia's understanding of the world, in Diane's career and perhaps her consciousness, in Atlantic Airways' training protocols, potentially in the experiences of countless future travelers. And now, perhaps, in his own future path as well. By the time they pull into their driveway, Sophia is already racing out the front door to greet them, Eliza following at a more measured pace. Normal life resumes its rhythm, but with subtle differences, new awareness, new purpose, new understanding. As Sophia launches herself into his arms, chattering about her day at school, Marcus holds her a little tighter than usual, grateful for her resilience, her innocence, and the chance to help preserve both a little longer through his own actions in the world. Some burdens shouldn't fall on 17-year-old shoulders, but when they do, how we carry them matters. And sometimes, if we're fortunate, we find that in carrying them with grace, we discover strengths we never knew we possessed. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to hear more stories like Marcus's. Comment below with where you're watching from and share your thoughts on this powerful journey of dignity, reconciliation, and growth.